Welcome to AFB Teachings. Today we are going to discuss about biology, the ninth class subject, and the first lesson is cell. Its structure, cell structure, and the functions. We are going to discuss about cell structure and functions. Last year you have already learned about the cell, what is cell, and where do we find cells. So already 8th class you got the clear idea about cell. So where do we find cells? In living organisms. In living organisms we can find cells, these cells. So living organisms have cells and non-living organisms, non-living have no cells. So this is the main difference between living and non-living. Already in 8th class you learned this, isn't it? So what is living and what is non-living? Living means having life, having life. So non-living means no life. So when we come to living organisms, the body of the living organisms will be filled with the cells. We call them cells. That means in non-living things like wall, like this plastic, iron, and our clothes, plastic utensils, everything have no life in our surrounding, in our house or out of the house. We can find many non-living things which have no cells at all. So in our house itself, we see many living organisms like rats, bandicoots, and lizards like flies, mosquitoes, and our pets, dogs, hens like that, and cows, buffaloes like that. So these are the living organisms. They are two types. They are already you learned already in 9th class. Living organisms are two types. They are plants and animals. So these two are living organisms. So plants means very small to big, very big. And animals also, like small ants, small eggs of ants. These are all living organisms, animals, small fly or mosquito, like that. So big animals. So small animals, from small animals to big animals, from small plants to big plants. These are living organisms. So we can say these are the living organisms. What is living? What do you mean by living organisms? Means so which have life, like plants and animals. They are living organisms. So what is the difference between these plants and animals? In 8th class, already you learned that cell is the unit of the life. Your second lesson is in 8th class. Cell is the unit of the life. Unit of the life means, what is it meaning? So already you learned this. Unit of life. Life means having life. So whenever you go to animal or a plant, so if we go for human beings, It is a and plants and animals. These are cell means that means you already learn in 8th class. In plants we have cells, in animals we have cells. Where do we have cells? If anybody comes to our class or if anybody asks you where do you find cells, that means your answer must be very clear. You must say our body is filled with full of cells only. So plant, when we come to plant, you have to draw like this. This is a now just a picture of telling that all plants have in their body wherever if you cut the leaf, you see many lakhs of cells, lakhs of crores of cells. If you cut the root also, you can find number of means lakhs of crores of cells. So everywhere in plant body, everywhere in animal body, we find cells only. So it is filled with cells. Our bodies, animal bodies and plant bodies are filled with these small animals, small cells. These are the cells. You have to fill it. Wherever you search for it, we can find in our body everywhere we have cells. That means in our skin and in our eyes, full body, heart, kidneys, everywhere we find cells only. So it is filled with animal body and plant body is filled with cells. So anybody asks you where do you find cell, where do you see the cells means you have to open your mouth and simply standing means it does not mean that you have already learned in 8th class. So in 8th class already you learned that every animal, every plant has a, even though it is a small animal or small plant, or it is a big plant or a big animal, their body is filled with cells. So there we learn that the cell is the unit of life. Life means if a plant or a animal, if it is big or small, they have living cells. So this is the lesson you have already learned in 8th class. Now when you come to 9th class means you should learn what is a cell and what is the structure of the cell and what are the functions of the cell. So first, who invented cell? Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke observed cells. That means room-like structures, empty room-like structures in oak tree. Oak or oak tree. Bark. Bark means when you see a big plant, this is the bark. It will be in a brown color. Many trees around you, you can find the outer layer is called bark. So this bark or bark you can say cork also. So in this cork, oak tree cork, he has taken, Robert Hooke has taken a peel of oak tree's cork. he has observed in a microscope. Microscope means we can observe microorganisms in this lens microscope. So these cork cells, he has taken a very thin layer of this cork like this, and he has already he put in the microscope. He has observed like this structure, very thin layer of this oak cork. He has observed these empty rooms like structures, empty rooms. So these are named as he has given this name cell. Each room is a cell, empty rooms. He has observed because it is a cork, it has no life at all. If there is a life in the cell, means he might have observed nucleus and cytoplasm, extra, etc. But he has taken the cork of the oak tree. He has observed this cork of the, this means this thin layer of the cork he has observed. He took to microscope and observed that layer, very thin layer of the cork. It has many rooms like structure. It observed. He has observed this room like structures. So he has given the name, each room is a cell. He called it as cell. So now, what is cell and where do we find cells? Already we learned in animals and plants. These are the, because these two are living organisms, we find in animals also cells, in plants also cells. So what is the difference between these animals and plants? What is the difference between the animal cell and the plant cell? We have to draw it a very big structure, cell structure, and we can find what are the differences between these two cells. So we can draw the like this, the animal cell, and we can draw, we have to draw this plant cell. So this is the plant. This is the plant cell and this is the animal cell. So now we have to observe the differences. Why we call this cell particularly, this is the animal cell. Why we call this cell as a plant cell? What is the difference between plant cell and animal cell? We have to observe. So when we go to animal cell, we observe in the middle of the cell, in the center of the cell, we observe nucleus having two layers. This is the nucleus. Whereas when we come to plant cell, we won't see the nucleus in the center of the cell. So we have to write this very clearly. This is the nucleus. So in animal cell, the nucleus occupies the center of the cell. The center place of the cell, we can find nucleus very perfectly. And when we come to plant cell, this nucleus will be thrown to somewhere. That means in the cell itself. In the cell itself, we find with two layers this nucleus. It will be thrown to some corner or some place of the cell. Then what do we find in the middle of the plant cell? Why the nucleus is thrown or pushed to somewhere in the cell. Why it is pushed like that? Because of this tonoplast. It is called vacuole also. This is the vacuole, which is also called tonoplast. Because of the tonoplast, the nucleus of the plant cell will be pushed to somewhere only in the cell itself. So, and this layer, outer layer, in this cell, these dots means this is the cytoplasm. It is a thick liquid-like structure. This is called cytoplasm. And in plant cell also we have cytoplasm. So there is no difference between about this cytoplasm. We can find cytoplasm in plant cell and as well as in animal cell. So this is the cytoplasm. In both cells there is cytoplasm. In both cells, that means in animal cell or plant cell, we find a nucleus which is having two layers. So in plant cell, nucleus is there, and in animal cell there is a nucleus which occupies the center of the animal cell. And when we come to plant cell, it is the nucleus is pushed to a corner or somewhere in the cell itself. So, and then we come to the main layer, outer layer of the cytoplasm. We call this liquid as cytoplasm, and this cytoplasm is covered with plasma membrane. Plasma membrane. So there is no difference between animal cell and plant cell in the plasma membrane issue. So we have in both cells plasma membrane which is covering this cytoplasm. Very important liquid like gel like structure. This is called cytoplasm. In cytoplasm itself there is the nucleus will be floating and the tonoplast will be floating. And in animal cell also this cytoplasm have nucleus and other organelles. Why I am telling organelles? In 8th class we have the word organelle. Organelle means cell means these are cells. So if we get into this cell, what we find these parts of the cell. So parts of the cell we can say they are organelles. Organelles are nothing but the inner parts of the cell. These are the organelles of this animal cell, and these are the organelles of the plant cell. And plasma membrane we have in both cells. That means in animal cell and plant cell. And the most important and the most difference between animal cell and plant cell is plant cell has an additional layer which is called a cell wall. So additional layer, one more layer you have to draw like this over this plasma layer. So after that means the cytoplasm is covered, that means saved by this plasma membrane, and outer layer is called cell wall. So cell wall I did not draw in the animal cell because animal cell has no cell wall at all. Only we can find cell wall in plant cell itself. In plant cells only we can find this cell wall. Most important difference between animal cell and plant cell. First difference I already told you that animal cell In animal cell, the nucleus occupies the central place of the cell, whereas in plant cell, it will be pushed. That means the nucleus will be pushed somewhere in the corners or aside of these organelles because of this big tonoplast. It has a tonoplast. So the main difference between animal cell and plant cell, we cannot find tonoplast in animal cells. Whereas we see tonoplast, a peculiar structure that is called vacuole in the plant cell. So how many differences we have find? Already we have find the structure, that means the place of the nucleus, and then second difference is tonoplast. We can see tonoplast or vacuoles only in plant cells, whereas we didn't see or we cannot see or the vacuoles or the tonoplasts are absent in the animal cell. And the third utmost important difference is cell wall. Where we see the cell wall, only in plant cells we see the cell wall. Whether it is a big plant or a small grass plant, they have cell walls. And in this animal cell, there is no cell wall at all. So this is the third difference. And what is the fourth difference? The fourth difference also in plant cell. This is the main, and whenever we have observed a cell in the microscope, whether it is an animal cell or a plant cell, first after having a glance of this cell, we can see it is a plant cell because of this green organelle, which is called a chloroplast. This is chloroplast, which is absent in animal cells. We never see chloroplast in animal cells. This is the peculiar character, the special character of the plant cell. We see chloroplasts in each and every cell of the plants. But in roots, plant will have roots. So in roots, we do not find any chloroplast. So this system is root system is quite different. It will be in the soil itself. So there is no there will not be chloroplast in the roots of the plants. Where we see outer, that means this outer part of the plant, that means stem, twigs, leaves, flowers, fruits, vegetables, like that. In the each and every part of the outer part of the, that means except in roots, we find everywhere in each cell the chloroplast. So this is the main difference between the plant cell and animal cell. And next we can talk about the what are the, we have already learned this structure of the plant cell and animal cell. What are the duties of nucleus of animal cell? What are the duties of nucleus in plant cells? And what are the duties of tonoplast and the duties of cell wall in plant cell? What are the duties of plasma membrane in general? We can talk in later class. We can discuss in later class. Thank you.